don't know if you can say AC/DC invented riff rock, but they certainly define it.
Great riffs are funny because the difference between a great riff and a bad riff, I couldn't tell you what the difference is. Other than the great riff you want to hear for 4 hours, and the bad riff, after about 10 seconds, you're like, okay, got it.
Riff rock is very different from, let's say, something that's more of a note-based arrangement. Riff rock really hits you in the gut. It's, it's basically based on chunks of sound that lock together, like a drum rhythm, like bass and drums, but transposed to guitar. So when you have that plus volume, you're pretty much getting hit with, well, you're getting hit with a giant bat, but you want to, if that makes any sense at all.
Once you hear that riff, that's it. You're hooked. It pulls you in.
I mean, I've had instances with my band where I'll have a pretty good riff, and we'll just play that riff for 30 minutes, just play the riff over and over again. And you keep waiting for it to get old, and it just doesn't.
It's the hook in the mouth. That's it.
Resistance is futile. Let the hook grab you. Let it take you.
You just dare someone to not bang your head a little bit or tap your foot or do something when you hear an AC/DC song.
It translates. Our hearts are running at about 60, 65 BPM up to 70, so that particular groove's at about 130, twice the rate, so it's actually right in there with the feel of your heartbeat. So you're subliminally engaged in the music because it's the perfect, groove dance tempo. You want to get up. It makes you want to stand up, and that's what they tapped into.
Girls Got Rhythm. It's one riff the whole time. And my personal connection to that song is it's my wife's favorite AC/DC song, and she's always told me, one of these days I'm going to surprise you on a birthday, and I am going to jump out of a cake and strip for you at your birthday party to Girls Got Rhythm. And I can't wait for that to happen.
The two greatest riff masters, really, to me, are AC/DC and Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi.
It hits your ear, it goes to your heart, and down to your lower regions, because it's very sexual if it's rock and roll, and then down to your feet, and it takes you someplace.
Iommi was these big, gothic, dark riffs for ages, but Angus was the let's pop a beer and party riff master.
I mean, if you want to kick somebody's ass, just put in an AC/DC song, I mean, it works.
AC/DC stands for alternating current and direct current, which are the two components in electricity, in everything that powers common household appliances, to larger equipment like amplifiers. And there really couldn't be a better metaphor for this band, because on the one hand, you have the direct current, which is Malcolm Young, whose guitar rhythms are the pulse of the band. They're constant, they sort of set the tone, set the time, and then on the other end of the current, you've got Angus Young, who's oscillating wildly, just like the alternating current does within the wires. So there really couldn't be a better moniker for what's going on.
The Youngs were like two heads on one body.
There's something about the way those guys play together that's pretty fascinating.
There's like a subliminal thing, and the two brothers only know the voicings of the other guitar.
It seems telepathic.
The chemistry between the Young brothers is incredible, and it is like a tennis match with the rhythm going back and forth. And it's like the most exciting kind of tennis match, where one player is hitting these long baseline strokes from the back, and the other one just keeps running up to the net, serving and volleying.
They're so enmeshed with each other, the way they play back and forth, I would think it has to come from the fact that they've been doing that since they were little kids.
One of them was making the bed, and the other one was making a mess out of the living room.
Even though Angus is clearly a focal point of the band because of his performance and how he plays and the quality of player he is and the visual he brings, the real unsung hero, I think, in that area is probably Malcolm.
What's unique about AC/DC's is their rhythm section is so incredibly solid. Cliff and Phil Rudd and Malcolm, especially Malcolm on rhythm, that it allows two characters to be at center stage.
AC/DC, Malcolm.
When people talk about the greatest guitar players of all time, and of course you've got all the people they always mention, whether it's Hendrix and Page and people like that. But to me, Malcolm belongs on every top guitar player list because he's incredible. Like, people don't understand the fact that I get it. Because he's not the guy running around and he's not Angus, people aren't focused on that. But he's the guy that wrote all those songs.
You can think it's all about up here, but it's really the guy in the back. And it's interesting because I've watched AC/DC live, and I'll just watch Malcolm. And his thing is like, it's all right here, buddy.
Malcolm is just keeping it all together back there.
In some ways, that is more rock and roll than anything else that's going on. Because he doesn't give a shit what you think. He's totally confident in what he's doing, and he knows it's real. He doesn't have to have a big guitar sound. He's just back there killing.
If you watch Malcolm on stage, he's beating himself to death with that Gretsch, And Angus gets to move around, and he gets some fresh air up his shorts and that, He's a lot more refreshing position, whereas Malcolm is beating himself to death, man. I've never seen a man work so hard in my life.
One time, Motley Crue were recording in the same studio as AC/DC in the late 80s, and Tommy, befriended the band, and he wanted to buy one of Malcolm's guitars from him, and just because, he was such a huge fan, he wanted one. So he did, and, Malcolm has everything sort of adjusted, and basically Tommy said that no matter what he did to this guitar, it only sounded like AC/DC, which is just classic.
Malcolm's always been the guy for me. That's why when I got my Angus tattoo, I couldn't get Angus without getting Malcolm. I mean, you can't have one without the other to me. You have to have both.
I think that Malcolm, Cliff, and Phil are the greatest rhythm section ever.
Without that rhythm section, none of this would work.
There's a talent, and to me it started with Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones. There's a talent to just keeping that groove consistent, firm. You have to support the way the songs were composed. And the way the songs were composed were for Malcolm to drive them and for Angus to fly them.
Whatever pocket Phil Rudd puts the band in is the right pocket. And it sits perfectly in the groove. And it's very important for that kind of music that it's just got the right pulse and the right swagger and the right swing.
There's like an inherent swing to what's going on there that gives it this driving groove.
He creates a groove out of something that is seemingly very square, but in actual fact, it's not square at all.
Phil Rudd's Phil Rudd. He's born that way. It's like drummers trying to emulate John Bonham. It's just never going to happen.
I defy most drummers out there to even just play Let There Be Rock correctly. Like, just that one song. Go ahead, try it. You will be dying 2 minutes in. Your arms will be falling off.
I think by the way he plays so concisely, keeping everything so in the beat and in the pocket, so to speak, it leaves that space for those ringing guitars and vocals to really grab you.
AC/DC knew right where to put every instrument. We're gonna make the drums have this kind of thumpy snare that's like, and the bass is gonna sit right in there, and the guitars are gonna be just above that, and the vocals are gonna be right there. And that's it. Power.
No matter what period you're talking about, what album, what era, is just the ability when you hear their music that everyone does the same thing, just starts to go like this.
4 on the floor. The kick drum rides the whole way through. Boom, boom, boom. You could go to a dance club right now in Las Vegas, Nevada, and that same kick drum would be there, even though it's done by a DJ, and it's the pulse, it's the rhythm of our heart.
There's just a classic thing that goes from their music directly into the body that makes you want to rock out.
They're simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. I mean, anyone can play those chords, but they can't play them like that.
The greatest misconception about AC/DC is that people think that what they do is easy.
People outside of it could say it's simplistic rock and roll, a band like AC/DC. or even Motorhead for that matter.
I never heard him play the same riff twice. So whoever it was who said that, fuck you, you know.
But the subtleties of what goes into playing that kind of rock and roll is the beauty of it.
And that's what I love about AC/DC's music, is that it's so simple, yet you can't do it.
They absolutely groove, they absolutely swing, and at the same time, they pound you over the head.